security, politics, sports, and more. Stream live on your smartphone and tablets and stay connected. It's pretty easy. Simply download NTA News app from your Google Play Store and you're good to go. NTA News mobile app, your access to real-time information.
NTA, you can't.
Hello. Scientists tell us that climate is an intricate system responding to a great deal of influences that can trigger climate change and its devastating effects. Efforts at tackling that challenge is our focus tonight as we bring you another edition of Weekend File on the network service of the NTA. Good evening, and we're glad to have you join us on the show tonight. The immediate and long-term threat to people on this planet by climate change makes it the greatest environmental challenge confronting the world today. In many cities, towns, and communities across the globe, there is apparent preparedness to adapt to unavoidable effects of climate change, such as pressure on water resources, flooding, damage of natural habitats, cyclone, hurricane, heat wave, and other uncontrollable atmospheric conditions. The International Panel on Climate, the scientific body assessing the impact of climate change, said that Africa is the most vulnerable continent to the adverse effect of climate change. But the continent contributes only about 4% of the total global emissions of carbon dioxide and other gases attached to industrial process. The need to up the game in the fight against climate change led to the historic agreement at the Paris Climate Summit in 2015 to reduce carbon emissions and limit future warming to below 2 degrees Celsius. Nigeria contributes only 0.57% of the global emissions, but has had its fair share of the impacts of climate change, namely flooding, erosion, heat wave, and landslides. Tonight, let's share the views of experts in our correspondence report from our network centers, plus studio analysis on tackling climate change. Thank you for investing your time with us on tonight's edition of Weekend File. My name is Kirian Umayo, and the news is next. Acting President Yemi Osinbajo said it is important that African countries remain united so that the continent would take its place in the international community as it stands to benefit from it. The acting president said this while receiving in audience a special envoy from the Egyptian president Abdul Fattah el-Sisi, Ms. Moshira Katab, who is vying for the position of Director General of the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO. State House correspondent Jide Onifade reports.
Acting President Yemi Osinbajo noted that the country has seen the importance of UNESCO, adding that this was so, especially at a time the federal government is confronting the challenges in Northeast, including the planning for the education of hundreds of thousands of displaced children. On the UNESCO election, Special Envoy Katab said that the African Union has pledged to support her candidacy in the forthcoming UNESCO election. She therefore requested Nigerians' support, considering the important role of Nigeria and the great respect that the country enjoys in Africa and globally. Special Envoy Katab also conveyed the greetings and best wishes of the Egyptian president to President Buhari for speedy recovery and safe return to Nigeria. In another development, Acting President Yemi Osinbajo stated that it is evident that Nigerians have the knowledge, expertise, and experience in virtually all areas of human endeavor to do anything required in the development of the country. Acting President Osinbajo made the assertion during a meeting with members of the Nigerian Society of Chemical Engineers who visited him to discuss federal government's policy on modular refineries in the Niger Delta. The acting president said the federal government would be guided by the insight provided by the delegation from the Society of Chemical Engineers that included university professors and former chief executives of NNPC firms and refineries. In the State House, Jide Onifade, NTA News.
The 16th African Nordic meeting of ministers of foreign affairs involving 26 countries has opened in Abuja. The meeting is focusing on enhancing sustainable development through trade and investment. Foreign desk correspondent Gabriel Odu has that report.
The 16th edition of African Nordic Meeting of Ministers of Foreign Affairs is not only focusing on trade and investment, but also on peace and security, as well as human rights and gender equality.
What we're really looking for is promoting direct trade between the Nordic zone and Africa. So we're in particular looking at market access for African businesses and also greater investment by the Nordic countries in Africa. And in this context, we're also looking for them to not repatriate the fruits of all their investments.
We are in the business of skilling, not just educating, because education is quite general, but skilling appropriately, appropriate skilling of our youth so that they respond to the needs of the hour.
When you look at the possibilities in Nigeria, they're huge. I think Norwegian companies are also very aware of social standards, the environment, and we want to be part of more job creation in Nigeria.
The kind of investment we're calling for in Nigeria now, African, in Nigeria in particular, is investment into manufacturing and industry.
There are 26 countries participating in the African Nordic meeting of ministers of foreign affairs. 5 countries from the Nordic region, which include Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Sweden, and Norway, while we have 21 African countries. From the Transcorp Hilton in Abuja, Gabriel Odu, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the National Council for Arts and Culture is putting itself before the mirror as it charts newer ways to bring Nigeria's arts and culture to global deadline. One of the strategies the Director General Otumba Shegun Ronshewe is adopting is hosting the 27 African ministers of foreign affairs who are in Abuja for the African Nordic Summit. Elizabeth Banu reports.
The talking drum welcoming the delegates at the Arts and Craft Village, Abuja. Hosted by the Director General, National Council for Arts and Culture, Otumba Shegun Ronshewe, the idea was for the delegates to socialize and see firsthand the rich culture Nigeria offers. The potential in the arts and culture industry can make a social and economic difference in Nigeria. Otumba Ronshewe noted that the industry is a gold mine whose potential is yet to be fully exploited, so the need to make the sector more visible and present it positively to the world.
We want to make people know that Nigeria is a safe country. You can come and invest, do business, very friendly people, hospitable people. Before now, our stories are being told by the wrong persons.
The delegates say they are impressed by the hospitality.
It's very modern, very dynamic, and I'm really happy to see that. I need really to visit more. I need to see the countryside.
With the renewed commitment by the federal government to provide the much-needed second stream of income, the National Council for Arts and Culture is now set to position Nigeria's art and culture industry in the global marketplace. In Abuja, I am Elizabeth Banu, NTA News.
Nigeria has expressed her commitment to the Paris Agreement that will mitigate climate change through investment targeting solar, wind, and hydro as cleaner sources of energy. Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, made this known at the 106th session of International Labour Conference ILO in Geneva, Switzerland. Correspondent Emmanuel Anyimiro, covering the event, now reports.
Leader of the Nigerian delegation, Chris Ngige, says the effects of climate change have continued to affect sustainable income, employment opportunities, and better livelihood, which requires more policies to shape the future condition of work. He told the conference that Nigeria is a signatory to the Paris Agreement, and the Buhari administration has increased substantial budgetary allocations to the sector in the last 2 years.
A roadmap was developed to exit gas flaring in the country by year 2020, and accelerated actions have been taken to reduce desertification through the National Agency for Great Green Wall.
Other delegates want more ILO collaboration with Nigeria.
We need to engage with the international community for us to exist, especially as regards labor movement, labor organization.
It is a known fact that our chances at achieving the Sustainable Development Goals are greater if illicit financial flow activities are halted and the leaking revenue channeled to government coffers to support public service delivery.
While Nigeria renews her commitment to continue to tackle environmental challenges that affect the nation, particularly at the workplace, the country is impressed that the Green Initiative by the ILO at this conference will make decent work flourish in productive and sustainable enterprises in a developing economy like Nigeria. From Geneva in Switzerland, Emmanuel Anyimiro, NTA News.
And back home here, Nigeria and development partners in the building environment insist that standard cannot be negotiated in the sector. This formed part of submissions as they joined the rest of the world to commemorate World Accreditation Day. Uche Mwizu was there for us.
The instances of collapsed buildings and ban on Nigeria's products at the international market have been worrisome as Nigeria diversifies its economy. The Nigeria International Accreditation Services, NINAS, is one of the many bodies poised to restore standard and quality of products and services in the country. With the support of some development partners like UNIDO, NINAS, through conformity assessment bodies such as test or calibration laboratories, inspection and certification bodies, work to ensure the public have confidence in the safety, security and sustainability of construction projects and other services in the built environment.
But this is coming to say those who are certified, let's check their competence, if they are qualified to do that.
It also provides government and regulators with reliable evidence that completed projects meet regulatory compliance.
It is the first time Nigeria is hosting the World Accreditation Day since 2008. Uche Mwizu, NTA News.
The federal government has renewed its commitment to revamping the Afam power plant, expected to address the power needs of the zone. The Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, gave the assurance after inspecting the facility at Afam in Rivers State. Kingsley Amajili reports.
Built in 1962 with only 20 megawatts installation capacity, the Afam Power Plants 1 to 5 have about 1,000 megawatts installation capacity currently. However, there are challenges of decayed infrastructure and gas supply issues which has stalled distribution. The visit of the minister is to address these challenges and reposition the plant for efficient service delivery. The minister disclosed that under the federal government's incremental power initiative, the Afam 3 power plant is expected to generate an additional 240 megawatts before the end of 2017.
We are only able to produce 100 megawatts. This is as a result of failure to maintain over the years, and I think all of the maintenance work stopped. We are here to assess the progress of the work we have been doing in the last 17-18 months to get this place back to its optimum capacity.
Leaders of Afam community appealed to the federal government to address their social infrastructural needs, which the minister promised to look into their request. From Afam, Rivers State, Kingsley Amajiri, NTA News.
The Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPC, says it has recorded an impressive increase in the average national daily gas production by about 29% in the March 2017 edition's report. This is contained in a statement by the Group General Manager, Group Public Affairs Division, NNPC, Ndo Oramadu. The statement notes that the monthly financial and operation reports of the corporation shows that the average national gas production for March 2017 edition stood at 226.918 billion cubic feet, which is about 7.319 million standard cubic feet of gas per day. The statement also indicates that the recent inauguration of about 497-kilometer petroleum pipeline network had helped in the sustained uninterrupted supply and distribution of petroleum products throughout the country. It, however, noted that within the period under review, pipeline sabotage had increased from 49 downstream vandalized points in February to 94 in March 2017. Nevertheless, the statement adds that there was an improvement compared to March 2016, when it posted 259 cases. It assured the nation that NNPC has stock of supply of over 1.2 billion liters of petrol for more than 34 days forward consumption. Now, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, has commenced door-to-door food distribution in the Northeast under the Special Food Relief Intervention flagged off by the acting president, Yemi Osinbajo. The distribution commenced in Maiduguri, Borno State capital. Musbao Dan Wahab monitored the distribution at the Bakassi camp in Maiduguri and now reports.
That used to be the situation for the internally displaced persons to get food, a cumbersome situation that further downgraded the dignity of the IDPs and subjected them to tests of stamina. Implementing the presidential order, NEMA is now turning the tide by devising means to bring sanity to the humanitarian intervention for the IDPs. Door-to-door distribution is the new strategy introducing the use of voucher. Assorted cereals including millet, sorghum, soya beans, maize, and 10 liters of vegetable oil are distributed per household.
We'll retrieve these vouchers from them and give out the quantity of food that is meant for our family.
Alhamdulillah. Thank God they brought the food to us at home. No fraudulent act. That's what we want.
The first batch of this quarterly distribution is expected to be completed in 30 days across the northeast states of Borno, Yobe, Adamawa, Taraba, Bauchi, and Gombe.
Our intervention will not stop at relief operation. We will provide livelihood options to the people and rehabilitation in the communities to ensure full recovery of people.
And for the areas that these pickups cannot access, NEMA is already partnering with Nigerian Air Force to lift foods to such areas. From Maiduguri, Musbao, and Wahab, NT News.
In line with the federal government's economic growth and recovery policy, ITF has come up with a template to transform Nigeria's economic fortunes through the encouragement of hands-on technical vocational skills. This was disclosed by the Director General of Industrial Training Fund, Joseph Ari, during a 3-day working visit to Katsina State. Correspondent Bashir Ibrahim Nababa reports.
Studies conducted by the United Nations Industrial Development Organization UNIDO suggested that the population of Nigeria is expected to hit about 500 million people by the year 2050, which is an alarming indicator to an economy regarded by experts as consumer-based. In view of this, the present management of the Industrial Training Fund under the leadership of the Director General Joseph Ari came up with a template called ITF Review Vision. In an interaction with the Governor of Katsina State, Aminu Bello Masari, the Director General stated that the major economies of the world today thrived by giving a push to their citizens with the requisite skills, stressing that Nigeria should not be an exception.
So skills are really the main and major things that can transform an economy, transform the people of the country and the nation as well.
Kazan State Governor Aminu Bello Masari assured of sustenance of the existing synergy with the fund, noting that no amount of investment is too much on human capital development. While in Katsina, the DG paid homage to the Emir of Katsina, Dr. Abdulmumini Kabir Usman. In Katsina, Bashir Ibrahim Nawaba, NTA News.
The Nigerian government congratulates the 7 British Nigerian candidates who won the elections as members of the UK Parliament in the elections held on Thursday, June 8, 2017. This was contained in a congratulatory letter signed by Senior Special Assistant to the President on Foreign Affairs and Diaspora, Abike Dabiri Erewa. The letter indicates that the unique feat is an evidence that Nigerians anywhere in the world will continue to excel and make the country proud, wishing them the very best. Well, you can watch this news live online via the NTA mobile app, which you can download on your Android device at the Google Play Store or at the Apple Store if you use devices with iOS. You're watching Weekend File on the network service of the NTA. Whatever may be the cause of climate change, doing nothing to tackle it is considered the world over as wrong because the impact will only increase. Experts believe that because of overwhelming scientific evidence that the climate is changing due to emissions of greenhouse gases, the world should evolve a research with unparalleled capacity to accelerate the progression from non-renewable to renewable sources of energy. More analysis on the issue is next on Weekend File after the break.
From what we have seen, we have the capacity which we can rapidly develop or feed in ourselves. If we don't import rice, we stop importing corn and other grains, Nigeria will have plenty of money to invest into developing industries, especially manufacturing, textiles and so on, and develop iron and steel, and complement the infrastructure development. So really, the opportunities are virtually limitless, and we are very, very aware of this, and we are prepared to exploit it to the fullest.
I can't believe she just rejected me and my camera.
She rejected my lights. How can she not want makeup?
Maybe when the battery dies, she'll come back to us.
Nah, not with a 4,000 milliampere battery.
Experience the best selfies of your life. Gioni A1 Super Selfie Super Battery.
Have you seen the new Opera Mini?
Browse faster. Get the latest news. Download videos and extend your data so you can browse all day.
Upgrade to Opera Mini.
Download now for free.
The Future Assured project of the wife of the president, Aisha Muhammad Buhari, is carrying out free medical screening and distribution of food items at various IDP camps while ensuring the economic empowerment of women through training and skill acquisition. In recognition of her efforts, wives of governors have lent their voices and support.
In Kogi State, we feel the impact of Future Assured, especially in women and children.
The Future Assured program of Mrs. Aisha Muhammad Buhari, the wife of the president, has been very assuring and still reassuring in Sokoto State. It has impacted positively in the areas of humanity, especially women and children.
Supports the Future Assured initiative. Email programs@futureassured.org.ng. Future Assured, promoting and protecting the lives of Nigerian women and children.
Okay, sir. You may now go in for your interview.
Thank you.
My shoe. And to think I just bought this very expensive foreign shoe 2 months ago.
So sorry about your shoes. This is why I advise my friends to always patronize made in Nigeria products. See this shoe. It's made in Nigeria and I've had it for 2 years and it's still as good as the day I bought it.
Made in Nigeria products are good quality, and stringent government regulations and certification now mean the goods made in Nigeria meet international standards. Make the patriotic choice today. Buy right. Buy made in Nigeria.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
We thank you for staying with us up till this moment on your weekend companion. Over 190 countries have formed a common front in tackling the emerging challenges occasioned by climate change, with each country admitted to contribute its quota. After the Paris Accord in November 2015, Nigeria in March this year ratified and submitted its intended national determined contributions to the United Nations in 5 focal areas. In this lead report by Mayor Ogidi, there's a reality of climate change in Nigeria. It tells us how we are going to mitigate this contemporary global challenge in Nigeria.
Climate change or global warming is the alteration in the patterns of weather and related changes in ocean, land surface and ice sheets occurring over time due to the continuous depletion of the ozone layer. And this is a reality also in Nigeria. In 1976, the Lake Chad covered an area of about 40,000 square meters, but presently it's only 1,300 square meters, forcing over 5 million people into untold hardship in the north. Between 1990 and 2005, Nigeria lost 6,145,000 hectares of land, representing 39.2% of the nation's forest space, to desertification and drought. The impact of this is the scramble for green vegetation for survival between herdsmen and farmers in the Middle Belt and parts of the Southeast, culminating into crisis and food scarcity in the country. And in the coastal lines, especially in the South-South and the Southwest, the expansion of seawater as the ocean warms and the melting of the ice over land may lead to rise in sea levels from 0.32 meters to 1.41 meter, and the rise of 1 meter could flood as much as 18,000 kilometers of land, forcing as many as 3.2 million people to relocate and destroying infrastructure valued at $18 billion. The unpredictable weather patterns and the over 2,000 gully erosion sites in mostly the southeastern part of Nigeria announced the devastating presence of climate change. However, various efforts have been made, especially at national and continental levels, to tackle climate change. But the most drastic of all is the Paris Accord, where over 197 countries agreed to reduce the emission of greenhouse gas as well as global temperature well below 2 degrees Celsius, as contained in the 12-page accord.
Agri, oil and gas, power, industry, and transportation. So all these major emitting sectors have to see how they can implement the NDC.
$100 billion is required to mitigate climate change globally by the year 2020.
Initiated plans to launch sovereign green bonds in order to address specifically projects that will address the climate issue.
To restore lost forests due to desertification and drought, the federal government of Nigeria initiated the Great Green Wall project in the northern part of Nigeria. But the issue of reduction in the emission of gases from automobiles is central also in tackling climate change.
Nigeria has a program on mobile sources of air pollution. These mobile sources where every vehicle in Nigeria must be tested annually for the level of emission coming from the vehicle.
You can plant a tree
You can raise public awareness, you can gather people and teach them about the effects of the environment and ask them to do something. So afforestation, reforestation, agroforestry at the individual level.
We want to put on record our gratitude to the government of Nigeria for its leadership in this task of addressing climate change issue, both on a regional basis and on a global scale.
The pulling out of the United States of America from the historic Paris Accord, being the second largest emitter of greenhouse gas and a major financier of the $100 billion deal, no doubt brings somewhat setback to this global fight. But some countries rather draw more strength from the U.S. decision. Mayor Ogidi, NTA News.
Thank you very much indeed, Mayor, for that background report with some vital information. Now, moving on, incessant ocean surge has resulted in massive erosion and loss of shoreline and coastal vegetation that help to check the impact of ocean storm and surge. Experts say the situation is aggravated by global warming and, of course, climate change. Jennifer Igwe in this report examines the impact of ocean surge and coastal flooding in Lagos, Nigeria.
This picture was taken by Trevor Daniels in 1997 in between many coconut trees. Not much, though, compared to what it used to be.
And Bayelsa states, especially those living along the coastal shoreline. Kinsley Amajiri reports that, but for minimal efforts by relevant agencies, the communities rely on self-help to address the challenge.
Erosion is more pronounced during the flood season and particularly in freshwater areas of Bayelsa State. It is a natural phenomenon arising from heavy rainfall and tidal movement along the shorelines. Farmlands, residential buildings, roads and valuable infrastructure have been washed away over time in affected communities. The impact is partly responsible for clustering within communities in coastal areas of the state.
The back swamps will contain some water, and when the water level would have gone down after the flood, then the water that would have been contained during the flood will try to find its way back to the river. And there will be what we call an overburden on top the water.
Not something that we can do. We cannot do it. We cannot stop erosion. It is only the government. As at now, we are suffering a lot. No assistance. It's not something that we can do manually. No.
The erosion is eating the soil, threatening lives and properties every day. We can't even sleep with our two eyes closed.
Dredging activities for sand for various construction work close to riverine communities, experts say, may contribute to the problem due to undercuts. Abandoned shore protection and embankment projects in some of the impacted communities has further compounded the problem in Bayelsa State. In Yenegua, Paulo Mukago, NTA News.
Erosion has been one of the ecological problems ravaging some areas within states in the southeast of the country. Kelechi Ochiaga, however, reports that with the intervention of both federal and state governments, some of the erosion sites have been tackled, while others still need urgent attention.
The density of gully erosion in the southeast has damaged farmlands and rendered some roads impassable to the extent that access to some communities in this part of the country, including the Twin Tank Reservoir at Ajali 9th Mile Corner, which is a major source of potable water for the residents of Enugu. It was for this reason that the federal government, in its intervention efforts through Nigerian Erosion and Watershed Management Project, NEWMAP, nominated Enugu State as one of the pilot states benefiting from the project.
Now we have a proviso provided clean stove, which radiates very little smoke. With this, it will resist the effect of this ozone layer depletion.
The state has in place laws to checkmate this effect. And one of them is that before you do any serious construction, you must do what we call EIA, that is Environmental Impact Assessment.
With over 1,000 sites in various communities, Anambra State has been identified as an erosion disaster area.
4 of them have been completed so far, up to 90 to 95% completion. His Excellency will just approve the about 10 sites again.
In Abia State, erosion has been one of the ecological problems ravaging some areas.
If they did not come here to help us, the erosion will just carry everybody away.
Environmental experts advise Nigerians to reduce the emission of gases which destroys the ozone layer and adopt renewable energy option for power supply so as to protect the environment. In Enugu, Kelechi Ochiaga, NTA News.
Now let's join Mohammed Nasir in Sokoto as he tells us about the massive sensitization and community participation in curbing climate change.
Education remains the major environmental challenge facing Sokoto State. There are natural and man-made activities that facilitate desert encroachment, especially in disease frontline local government areas of the state. These include deforestation, erosion, bush burning, overcultivation and grazing, which poses great threat to the entire ecosystem. The rate at which desert encroaches is reported to be 600 meters per annum, with attendant destruction of farmlands, particularly in the frontline areas. This causes tremendous havoc to the land resources, communities, and the environment, as it comes along with challenges of heat, dust, drought, and other forms of environmental degradation.
We have a lot of farmers that their area has been covered with sand, which we call sand dunes. And as such, they don't have any means of sustenance. As such, it is causing a lot of socio-economic problems.
Sokoto is one of the states that heavily rely on firewood as a source of energy, which in turn promotes deforestation.
Management is one of the major key issues that state government has put in place. Some years back, about 50 staff forest guards were recruited by state government just to properly manage or look after these forest reserves. Because if they
Government of Sokoto State produce 1 million seedlings annually for distribution to communities in addition to annual tree planting campaign. For over 7 years now, all local government councils in the state are directed to establish 2-kilometer shelter belts in their domains to serve as windbreakers to protect the environment. The state government also collaborated with the federal government to execute a number of environmental protection programs in the state, which include Great Green Wall, Forestry 2 project, as well as drought and desertification programs. In Sokoto, Muhammad Nasir, NTA News.
You're watching Weekend File, and after the break, we shall be looking at the climate change in our ecosystem and how to tackle the effects of that climate change. And we'll be back very shortly.
How can she not want makeup?
Maybe when the battery dies, she'll come back to us.
Nah, not with a 4,000 milliampere battery.
Experience the best selfies of your life. Gioni A1 Super Selfie Super Battery.
The Debt Management Office, DMO, on behalf of the Federal Government of Nigeria, is offering the general public an opportunity to invest and contribute to national development through the Federal Government of Nigeria's Savings Bond. Investment in the FGN Savings Bond will lead to poverty reduction and create employment opportunities. FGN Savings Bond have attractive features: guaranteed fixed income, quarterly interest payment, use of investment as collateral for loans, can be sold at the secondary market, good for savings towards school fees, marriage, and house projects. Please visit www.dmo.gov.ng, your stockbroker or financial advisor. FGN Savings Bond for national development. This message is from the Debt Management Office.
Issues in the sports sector remain one of the most debated among Nigerians due to the passion, followership, government involvement, impact on Nigeria's external image and our national life in the sports parliament. The NTA offers Nigerians deep views on issues with experts in the sports sector, offering in-depth analysis, hindsight, insight and foresight towards elevating Nigerian sports to the zenith, the floor of the sports parliament.
So many things have been wrong in sports. We've been talking around it.
We need performance expertise, and you can only get some of these where you have world-class facilities.
How can sports deliver return of investment to attract the kind of money required to take it to the next level?
We cannot interfere in the internal affairs of even the federations that belongs to us.
Sports Parliament, a unique platform for sports discussions, showing live on the NTA, Thursdays at 11 p.m. Keep a date with the parliamentarians.
The eyes have it.
All right, thank you very much indeed for being part of the show up to this moment. And I'm now being joined in the studio for further discussions on this by a specialist on climate change who has also participated in the Conference of Parties to the UN Convention on Climate Change. I have here with me in the studio Professor Emmanuel Oladipo. He is also of the Department of Geography, University of Lagos. So you're welcome to Weekend File.
Thank you.
Now, as a professor of climatology, I would like to start by asking you to tell us what policy initiative would you recommend for government for climate change for our ecological system?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to always talk about climate change. As Nigerians must accept that climate change is part of our life. There's nothing we can do about it. Whether we like it or not, to continue to change. It has changed in the past, to change in the future. But what is important is to try to understand how these changes are affecting us. Nigeria has made some progress, and we have a national policy on climate change, which was approved in September 2012. What is required now, in view of the various initiatives that exist in the country, is for us to look into that policy again, review it, and put all these various initiatives like the Green Wall Initiative, the New Map project, the proposed integrated coastal zone management, to put them in a holistic manner by which we have a platform in which we'll be addressing all the various issues in which climate change are affecting us along the coast, in the northern part, in the middle part, and in various sectors of our economy.
Now, Nigeria participated in the November 2015, Paris climate, change initiative.
Yes.
And well, we hear that America has pulled out of that arrangement. And will it affect whatever is the proposed initiative by all these nations that we should tackle? Is it going to affect? What decision to be taken on that?
I would first of all like to say that I'm very proud that we participated there in Paris, and the speech made by the president actually created a sort of uproar in which he made a statement that if about 200 million people are displaced by climate change from Nigeria, where will they go? Can anybody contain them? I think that really made everybody to think very well that climate change is a serious challenge to us. Unfortunately, we were thinking we made a lot of progress. America, under the new president, decided to withdraw from this. But to me, and to many people, many scientists, we are very optimistic that it may slow the progress. But there are a lot of good news that will not make the whole thing to be a setback. Number one is that the largest emitter of greenhouse gases, China, the other large ones like Russia and India are continuing. And even within America, some states like California, Washington, New York, are already saying that they will continue to give their support to the Paris Accord. And some mayors, about 80 of them in America, are also going along to implement this. And with that, when I believe that as time goes on, and American companies see the benefit of some of the approaches that are being used in the area of technological development, they will come, and they may not come as a government, but they will come. And I believe that as America eventually sees the progress that is being made and the benefit, America eventually come back to see the reality.
Now, in some of our reports, you know, I believe you watched.
Yes.
There has been, you know, rise in sea level, and leading to flooding, coastal erosion, especially people who live in the, you know, shorelines. And this sometimes leads to deaths of inhabitants of these areas. Now, are you satisfied with our degree of responsiveness to these calamities?
Briefly, the rise in sea level is not local. What causes this rise in sea level is that because of the heat, the global warming that is taking place, a lot of the ice that were already contained in the sea waters in the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere are melting, and they are coming in and increasing the height of the sea level in many parts of the world, which means climate change is not something you can say as a country I want to tackle. It's a global problem, and that's why the world is so particular about working together. In Nigeria, I think we have taken the coastal zone for granted. We have not really come up with a very comprehensive, integrated approach that can help us to restore this coastal zone. And I think the earlier we do it, the better, because we stand the chance of losing so many parts of our coastal area to sea level rise and subsequent erosion that will take place. What Nigeria needs is to come up, just like we have some initiatives now, like NUMAP and the rest. We need another initiative that we will call Integrated Coastal Zone Management for the country, in which all areas of the country along the coast will be properly addressed. But we cannot do this unless we really understand the mechanisms. What is causing this erosion? Because whatever erosion is taking place, what people should realize is that it's also sedimentation in another one. So some of the sand that is carried from one place is being deposited in another. How do we really do it? And there's nothing too difficult about this. Netherlands has a lot of its areas under the sea, and they're managing it very well. So we can learn from what other countries have done. But what we need is the political will to put the issue of the coastal zone of Nigeria into a comprehensive development plan known as Integrated Coastal Zone Management, which we need to do soon.
Now, with respect to mitigation, what would you suggest to government, to the stakeholders to begin to do? Because what we have just analyzed is a clear indication that there's no deliberate effort being made towards this. And year after year, we keep seeing, you know, flooding here and there. In fact, as last year we had about flood in 27 countries out of 36. 26 out of 36, states of the federation. So, which means that it's all over. Mm-hmm. All right. So you are a climatologist, and you're also involved in the globally on issues concerning climate change. Now, how would you advise this government, to key into what is the global practice with respect to mitigation and, in fact, addressing the coastal issues, because they are prone to this flooding?
We need to do what I call a comprehensive assessment of what are the potentials for us to mitigate and adapt to climate change properly. The country is still full of very sectoral, piecemeal approaches. And unless we really come up clearly and try to understand what are these things, what is the role of government, what is the role of the private sector, what is the role of the individual, what can an individual do? For instance, if you are talking about energy generation, which is leading to some of these things, we are using fossil to generate energy. If you as an individual, you want to serve tea to your husband, and you put a whole kettle of water on the stove, you are using so much energy for a cup of tea. So little things like that people need to do that can help us to reduce the amount of energy, make our energy use more efficient, are very critical. But people have to be knowledgeable about these things, and I think the role of the government is to try to advocate a lot of these things much more than we are doing, so that individuals, the private sector, and the government, and the communities, we know exactly what they have to do. But the most important thing is that we have to accept that we must adapt to it. Our land use plan is very reckless. We are not planning according to us. A lot of the water areas, a lot of the what you call the mangrove areas, which are more or less watersheds that are really retaining water, are being cleared, for instance. So we need to plan and live and accept that every year, certain areas of this country will undergo flood, certain others will not have flood. But which areas we have to have timely intervention to be able to predict effectively, not just in Kwara State. No, we're in Kwara State. Which part of Kwara State we have floods, so that people can know how to prepare themselves for it.
Right. One final question. Yeah. What is the nexus between climate change and food security? I
think this is very critical. 90% of our agricultural practices in Nigeria are dependent on rain-fed agriculture. If the rain fails to come, we are more or less finished. So we have to really understand that all evidences are pointing to the fact that about 20 to 40% of agricultural productivity may be wiped out by climatic changes that are occurring. So we need to really start thinking of how to use our available resources in terms of water and other things that will relate to existing current climatic conditions to make agricultural productivity very effective and functional for future food security.
Professor Emmanuel Oladipo of the Department of Geography, University of Lagos, thank you for coming on Weekend File.
You're welcome.
Thank you indeed.
Thank you.
Well, more to come as we have sports update and, of course, the weather outlook for tomorrow.
Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, is working to ensure access to safe, good quality essential medicines with the World Health Organization pre-qualification of made in Nigeria pharmaceutical products, stiffer penalties for fake drug offenders with a review of NAFDAC laws, national, regional, and international collaborations, cutting-edge technologies, including the mobile authentication service.
NAFDAC as an agency is indeed doing so much to protect the health of our nation. I urge everyone to support NAFDAC in ridding the country of fake drugs and unwholesome products.
Let us support NAFDAC to win the war against fake drugs and other unwholesome regulated products. NAFDAC, safeguarding the health of the nation.
My name is Hadiza Mohammed from Bauchi. I'm one of the beneficiaries of Empower program. Yes, I graduated since 2010. The little money I got from my NYSC, I decided to start something with it. That is, I started selling firewood and recharge cards to take my family, my aged parents and my siblings to school. I was possessed to one village, you understand? You know, I'm a degree holder, so I don't have much experience in teaching. So I have to, when I look at the children, I say, look, I have to do this thing. Even those that have experience, they are not better than I do. You know, the children are willing to come to school, but there are no teachers in that village. So I said, Kai, let me help these children. I'm also a graduate. Let me help them. Let them know how to read and write. Let them know how to read and write just the way I am. Let me try my best and see that they have gained something too, through me. We pray that Almighty Allah should give the president sound health.
Now, Super Eagles of Nigeria begin the 2019 AFCON qualifiers on shaky note.